Hi, and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with our hard surface modelling. So far we've created our part of our bars and nuts and bolts, and in the previous one we created this sprocket drive. So if we can see here, we took parts from an actual physical chainsaw and then mixed it with some other sort of sprocket drives. We can probably assume maybe this is welded to it, but if we want to go deeper into how this is attached, we'll do that after we've added the sort of chains. So in this one we're going to now start by modelling the motors, or just the motor, because they're probably just going to be the same ones. And yeah, so we'll start with the motors. So I'm just going to go, as I always do, I'm just going to go to my orthographic front. I'm going to just see, I don't really need these anymore, so I'm just going to tidy up my scene. What's this? Don't need that. So I've just got stuff that I need. So I'm on my front, I'm going to select my camera, image plane, import image. Then I'm going to go to my reference. So now I've got all these I found this motor from the one that we initially started planning with. So the idea was, we've got all this stuff from maybe an electric longboard or something like this. So this was sort of the premise at the start. This is where we get most of our stuff from. Then we sort of Frankenstein it together. So I've got these motors here. And see, luckily, because I went to their website and I got all their images. So we've got lots of reference on how to model them. So I don't know if you can actually see. You can't really see much bigger, but luckily this motor is in, there's one piece here, the middle piece, and this end piece, which I assume spins with the motor, or not. We'll just have a look into that. So we can actually model these in multiple different parts. It doesn't have to be in one big model. So, and you can see that a bit clearer there. So we've got quite a lot of details here on the front, with holes in the sides, so we've got quite a few complex shapes. So on our front part we've got all these holes here. These holes won't be too difficult, then this beveled edge, but then we've got to make this hole here from where the cables go in. I think that's a hole there, you can't quite see it. And on the back we have, you can't really see it, but you've got these quite a few complex hole shapes here, but it also sort of breaks down into these sections. So we're going to start with the back first. So it's where is it? Motor 5. Cool. I'm just going to open that. And I'm going to hide my chainsword for now. And we can just about see what we have here. So we only have to do 2 of these sort of bits that are cut into the side. So that works out quite well for us. And just trying to think of the best way we can. So we can orientate this to how we would like to sort of model it. Obviously this is not shot, although it looks like it's fairly close on there. There is some sort of perspective in there, so in fact let's just try it. So as usual, a lot of our stuff is cylindrical shaped in this, so I'm just going to start with a cylinder again. Just going to rotate it 90 degrees to go to my X-ray so I can see that. So I'm just going to scale this up to this. Luckily you can actually see exactly where the center of this is, so we can see if it's actually fairly close up. So it's pretty close. Pretty close to being front on. But yeah, let's not worry too much about it. So what I want to sort of keep an eye out for is, because we've got these edges here, I need to make sure that this is all going to work all with here. So I'm not going to be too focused on getting this initial shape. I'm going to do what I usually do and block out the holes with cylinders and create these shapes. So if I just hide that for now, I'm just going to figure out a nice... because I don't want to model all of this, so I'm just figuring out what section I can model without having to do too much. So I only effectively have to do a quarter. So I'm thinking, if I just model this quarter here, let's bring back that cylinder. I'm just going to use this cylinder as a reference to make sure it's fairly square, albeit we're going to we're not going to trace around this. Well, we will trace around it, but obviously because if we trace around it perfectly, we're going to end up with all sorts of wonky stuff. So I'm just going to roughly place this so this is in the center here. And I'm just going to lock that now. So I'm going to select my image plane, lock on what it rotates, translates, and scale. So now I can't move that. So I'm going to hide that. I'm going to create another cylinder. Change it 90 degrees. And I'm just going to sort of, look at that, it's almost coming at the exact same size. Obviously our image plane is absolutely huge, so don't worry that it's not the right scale at the moment. So obviously if we make all of this, we've got to be accountable for all of our edges. So if you make it if you make it like this, you have to figure out where all these edge loops go. So I don't want to do that many, but I need to make sure that I keep it an even number so I can symmetrize it. So because I'm going to do this in quarters, you can sort of see in the cylinder it's symmetrical because now I can see the sort of left and right to up and down. Cool, so I'm going to use 16 subdivision axis. And I'm just going to duplicate this for this hole as well. And duplicate that again for this sort of center hole. We will sort of align these a bit better later on, but I just want to block it out at the moment. So for Control D, I bet you that's probably, no it's not. It's probably the same size as that one, but so I'm just using my cylinders to rough out the sizes because I'm not too worried about that at the moment. So obviously now we've got this sort of curved shapes. I'm just duplicating all these cylinders around. I'm not going to change the scale of that. So now we can sort of see the things that we're going to need to do. Because I do actually see that side. Just going to duplicate that to there. So we've got all this and we don't need to worry about that. Cool. So I've roughly placed them, and what I want to do is let's centralize the symmetrical parts. So I'm going to use this as the center. So if I hold V and select my Y translation, just going to make sure that these are snapped and aligned, and this one in the X, because I did just roughly place them. These don't matter so much because there's not going to be the symmetry is not going to be on there. Cool. So I'm going to start with this. So I'm going to select all. I'm going to go to my modeling toolkit, select all my faces, and I'm just going to delete all those edges and those edges. I'm just going to slightly pull it that way so it's actually aligned. And I'm going to do the exact same with this. So now I've got these two perfectly rounded edges. So now I'm going to select these both, and you go modeling, mesh, combine. So if I go to my perspective now, press F. Obviously this is massive, but let's not worry about that at the moment. And I'm going to select these edges and bridge. Press G to repeat command. So if I now go to my X-ray, my faces are the wrong way because this is going to be the inside. So let's go to our mesh display and reverse. And I'm going to go back to my orthographic front. And I'm going to leave that as it is for now. In fact, I'm going to select that. I'm going to double click these edges, Control E to extrude. And I'm just going to do the first set of extrusions on the edge so I can see it. And for now, I'm going to leave that as it is. So I'm going to go to all these other ones. These are pretty simple to do, so I'm just going to go to this middle one and delete that. And do the same for this middle one and delete these, because we only need the inside parts. So we sort of deleted those, and now we've got this sort of curved edge. And let's think of where these edges are going to go. We can sort of leave that like that. You can rotate them around if you want. I think that might be... So I'm actually just going to rotate. It's hard to see, but I'm going to rotate it so I've got an edge going from through down the middle. So I think I need to rotate that a little bit more. Don't forget it's curving, so I've got this edge going down the middle, and I'm going to do the same for this. So now I've got, if I select all these faces, and I want to delete these all the way around to the flat edge. And now I want to do the exact same thing for this. So we delete it to the flat edge. So now if I go back to my panel's perspective, I'm going to select... Oh, in fact, I need to merge them first. So I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to go mesh, combine, select the edges. And bridge. And I'm going to put trying to think if that's probably the best way to do it. Yeah, I'll put 3 divisions in it. And I'll select this one and press G. Then put another 3 in this one. So we need to make sure that it's symmetrical. And now I'm going to go to my orthographic front. Select my vertices because I can't see the edges. And I'm not going to select all of them. I'm just going to, well, yeah, I'm going to select all of them actually. I'm going to select all the middle ones. I'm just going to, I'm not going to try and match both. I'm just going to pick one side so I can see this side much clearer. So I'm just going to match these two in the middle. Then I'm going to deselect them, the edge ones. And then match that there. So it looks like we will need, maybe that's a perspective thing. Let's maybe even do it a little bit more. Might be the reason why, because we're quite out on it. So I feel that's probably alright. So if I just press 3 and just see how that's going to smooth. Maybe even, let's have a look at it in perspective. I think that'll be fine. We don't want to make it too complex. I'm just going to select all these edges, go back to my orthographic front, Control E, and just do my first extrusion. And you can sort of see that we've forgotten to reverse our faces. So if I just go to select my geometry and go mesh display and reverse, and now you can see we've got this. We can actually see it a little bit clearer. Maybe some X-ray on. Let's adjust these. I'm not too keen on how. They're a bit further apart for some reason. Cool. I think that'll be fine. So a lot of this we might not even see, but it's more for like the modeling practice. So now this is going to get into a bit of a more of a trickier shape, because we're going to delete this polygons and delete these top ones. We can just select all the edges, then deselect those, press Control E. And I'm not going to follow it, I'm just going to make sure it's going up, otherwise we'll lose the symmetry. And don't worry if it's kind of coming off. So I'm just going to pull this up to the edge. We'll sort of figure out what's going to happen here. Then let's just select our edges again. So we'll have to go back to perspective, deselect all the back-sided ones. Let's go to graphic front, okay, press Control E to extrude, and now let's do our first extrusion. And the same again, we go to our mesh display and reverse. Okay, so we're starting to build out these shapes. And now let's go to this one, Control E and extrude out. Because these all have the same amount, we should be able to easily marry it all up. So let's just Control E on that edge, and let's mesh display reverse on those. So now, as you can see, we've got all our shapes. And if we go back to our, where's our cylinder? It's our first cylinder. We can now see that we need a lot more edges. So I'm not going to commit to this yet. I'm just going to sort of figure out how many we may need. It's quite a complex shape, but we'll worry about that later. Cool. So we're going to work, the easiest way for this, we're going to work from our center outwards. And I am just going to, for this part, for the centerpiece, I am just going to use this as a full, I'll cut that out afterwards, but because I want to sort of, I'm still going to model it symmetrical. It's just so I can make use of the edge loops properly. So we can see straight away here, we need to sort of marry this up. So what I'm going to do first, excuse me, I'm just going to rotate this round just so it's aligned with this point here. I'm going to select these two. In fact, I'm going to make that edge slightly a bit smaller. And the same with this one. And I'm going to select both these and mesh combine. And I'm just going to delete the history of that so it doesn't get heavy. I'm going to go to my modeling toolkit, select my edges. First thing, I'm just going to bridge these two. I'm just going to check in my perspective, nothing strange going on, which it is. So somewhere down the line we have, so I'm just going to select all these, mesh combine, I'm going to select all the edges, and I'm just going to, I don't know how that's happened, must have moved it, and just scale them all in one axis. Cool. So now they're all on the flat plane, and actually what we can do, we can delete all this. So now we're working with just a flat plane. Cool. So now we've just got to figure out how to join this all up. So because we're working with this is going to be quite a lot of geometry in here, so we really do want to make sure we keep this tidy as we go along. Otherwise it could turn into a bit of a nightmare. And this is going to give us kind of a good insight to sort of edge flow. We've got a lot of round things. We can bring this in multiple different directions. So I've now attached those. And I'm going to work my way up to this top. And I'm going to sort of figure out this sort of section here. So I'm going to start on the top. Let's Control E. And I don't need to worry about this side now. Just going to scale this down so that's flat. Go to my vertices, target weld. And what we can do, I'll just slightly adjust all this. So it gives us some really nice edge flow. Control E. Same again, target weld to this side. I'm just going to work my way up. And there's going to be a point where I don't want to weld these together because it'll start... Ooh, I'm using the wrong one, target weld. It will start stretching a lot. So we don't really want to do that so much. So it just starts to look a bit nasty. Like I said, we're doing, for what we're probably not going to see, but if you're doing this for your modeling reel, you're going to have a lot to showcase, and it's going to look great on your reel. So that's probably the main thing for this. So I'm now going to select these edges. I'm just going to work my way down from this one as well. So Control E, extrude that out. So I do like to keep at least 2 polys before an edge, because if we have to sort of make any poles or nodes where there's multiple edges going into vertices, you can get some odd effects. So I always like to keep this sort of stuff here. Do you see where we've got 5 edges going into one vertex? Keep that away from edges where we're going to be sharpened. So now I am... Do I want to do one more in there? So I'm actually going to... So I'm just thinking out loud. So I'm just going to Control E on that, and extrude that out. I'm just going to go around and use my target weld that together. There we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think that's probably fine. Because we've got quite a big gap here. Let's just pull this out and figure out this topology first before we jump ahead and start welding stuff together. Because we might actually not want to do it. We might want to add one more in there. You know what, it should be fine. Let's just try it. If it doesn't work, we can always delete it and do it again. So I'm just going to pull this up and make sure this is nice. And obviously we've got some strange stuff because it's got quite a lot of space here. We could almost bridge that there. And just see we've got an edge loop here. It's kind of a bit funky. I want to keep this as an edge loop, so I am that would actually be like this. So let's target weld that. So now you can see our edge loop. If we double click these, it's created this edge loop. And you want to model in a way that sort of keeps your edge loops. Because it helps you a lot if you have to select edges, and it's just good practice. But like I say, hard surface modeling, you can get away with some pretty bad topology. But if you want to show this, you're not really going to get away with it. You have to show some sort of decent topology. So I'm just going to select this edge. Pretty much done with that side, so I'm just going to only select these edges. And you can see we're going to have some problems up here soon, but we'll use another piece of geometry to sort of match that. Just going to target weld that. I'm just going to select these edges. I can double click, but you can see it's because we've made it all an edge loop, it's going to select everything. So I'm just going to Control E, extrude that out. Bring that up to here. Target weld. And weld my edges. And I'm just going to go through and just tidy this up. Cool. So we've sort of done this section here. And we do need to sort of focus on what's going to happen here, because we need to duplicate this. So we've obviously done something it's not looking quite right here at the moment. So we need to figure out how to join this now, because we've pretty much got that sorted up there. We just now need to figure out the rest. So I'm just going to select my edges, select these edges, Control E again. I'm just going to add my extra edge loop. So I need to effectively make this a flat point. So this has got to be there. I think that's definitely got to be there. So we probably need to actually delete some of this, just so we can make more sense of it. I'm just going to bring this down there. I'm just moving it along in my axis. Then I probably want to bridge that. I'm just going to select this and match it to the height of that. So I'm going to make that a nice edge loop. Just thinking I could probably put another edge loop here, just so I'm not really restricting myself. Bridge that. Then I'm going to select these two and press G and bridge that. Probably didn't need to do that, but it's kind of nice that we're not overstretching stuff. Cool. So let's just go through and tidy up all our topology. You know what? That probably needs to be more like that. Cool, so I think we can probably also bridge that one as well. And now you can see how we're sort of building this out. We're not worried about this, this is where we're going to duplicate it, or mirror it, sorry. Well, mirror and duplicate it. So I'm just going to even this all out. So I'm going to go to this part. I'm going to do my double extrusion on that so I can have my extra bit of geometry. So we're going to have multiple edges here coming up here, and obviously we need to add some edge loops here. So I'm going to start from the middle where I can make the most sense of everything. So if I bridge that, and I bridge that, and I can bridge that. We've got two pieces of geometry coming out here now, so let's bridge that as well. And we're probably going to get quite a lot of stretched geometry, so I don't mind adding an extra edge loop. So I'm just going to make sure that I tidy up this as I go along, because this can turn into a... If you just make it messily at the start, it could be a bit of a... You eventually have to do it, so you may as well do it as you go along. So now we're going to come to points where it's a little bit... We got stuff where we have to add edge loops. So let's work our way around here. So may as well, we're already up here. So I'm just going to add an edge loop here, and one for that one, and one for that one. And I'm only going to do that for now, because I don't want to add loads then realise, oh, I might not actually need them. So press G to repeat command. And we will add one more. And bridge that. Because don't forget, we still, once we've got to this sort of edge, we're going to have loads of loose geometry and we kind of need to figure out what we're going to do with it. So we can actually, I'm going to roughly pull these. And don't worry if it's not perfect at the moment, we will, like I always do, I use another cylinder to make sure that my arc of my cylinder is correct. It's very easy to sort of think it looks right, but then when you smooth it, you see all these like lumps and it looks nasty and it's not great and you don't know what's going on and it's all just falling apart and you're going nuts. And it's sometimes it's just because it's not perfectly round. So I'm just going to go around and just tidy up this topology. Not so much on the edge because I want to keep that. So just shifting these around so it's got a nice sort of edge flow. Now I need to figure out what I'm going to do here. So I think I'm going to select, not that one, these edges, Control E, just pull that out. That's going to be my edge. So I want that probably to there. And don't worry if it's not perfect, like I said, we will adjust it. So now I've got this shape, so I will need to add another edge loop there. Select this edge and bridge. This edge and bridge. And before we go any further, we can sort of tidy this geometry up. So we can bring this down so it's not so stretched. So we can just even this out a bit. Same, we'll just bring this down. I just want to make it look as nice as possible. Because even when I'm done this will probably go on my reel as well. Because we spent so much time on it, why wouldn't you? And I'm not worried about this edge because we'll fix that at the end. So if we now look at this, we've got some extra funky shapes going on here. So we could have this part going right through the middle. First, let's prepare that for the same sort of logic as we did up there. You kind of want to, if you've done something at the top and you kind of want to keep everything a very similar workflow. You don't want to, just in case you have to reuse parts, I don't want to then do something different down here. And it makes it easier as well. So now I can select these. Just Control E. I'm just going to shift these out of the way for now. Use my target world. Now I'm going to start to figure out how to find homes for these edges or vertices. Because I don't want to... There's quite a lot of room there, so... Because we don't have a ton of space there. if I want to do that. So I forgot about this one at the bottom, so I can't select that edge loop because it's as it's joined, it's gonna be a bit of a pain. So I'm going to extrude that out, and I've gone over a bit here, but we'll worry about that in a minute. So I'm just going to pull this up. And target weld, it's going to go there. And we're going to start to figure out how to end drawing all this together, so we can bridge that there. You can see how now we've got this pole, or this 5-pointed node in here. I can never remember if it's a pole or a node, but you'll notice when you see it, this sort of stuff's usually quite bad, but if you have it on a flat surface, you won't notice it. That's why I like to keep all this stuff away from sharp edges, because if you have that, say if you have this here on an edge, it's going to cause you just a ton of problems. But we might be able to figure out how to remove that anyway. But I'm just going to go through, oh, not hide, Control G. So that's actually a 6-sided, so that should be fine. Cool. Looks like we're on a flat surface, so we just want to make sure that we're tidying up our topology as we go along. So if you want this, let's just extrude this edge out to see what we can do. Actually, I probably want to delete that. This is where sometimes it can turn into a bit of a puzzle to figure out how to join things together. But you'll get used to it after a while. It's just the way of modeling. So let's just target weld these together. Let's start to figure out how we're going to join this. And luckily, because we kept everything fairly similar, it's a fairly simple fillet. Oh no. Let's bridge those. Select these, press G. Cool. So now we've pretty much almost done it. We've just got to tidy up our topology now. So it does look a little bit nasty. I'm not going to go too deep into tidying this up at the moment because we still have to figure out the outside edge and make that cylindrical. So obviously at the moment if we press 3, that's not round at all. And it looks kind of nasty. So I'm just wondering how we can remove that pole if possible. So if we had that go around there. So I don't think it's a big deal. We can go to our X-ray perspective. If we just assign our Fong, turn our default shaded off. Let's hide that image plane. You can see that on the sheen, so you see how like this highlight here, it's showing absolutely no creases or anything, so it's absolutely fine. Let's go back to our front, turn our X-ray back on. So we're pretty much done with this, so our next step is you probably want to save this. I am gonna delete the history, and I'm gonna bring back the cylinder now. Turn on my wireframe on shaded, and in fact, I'm gonna hide that. I need to figure out how many edges this is, so I'm just gonna select my edges, press Q so I don't move it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 edges. So let's say 17 times 4 is 68, but obviously it's not going to be, so it's going to be 17, 18, 19. Let's start with 68, then we'll move up and see how that matches. So we've got 1, 2. So let's try 72 for the missing ones, I think. I think that probably makes more sense. Cool. So I'm just going to go to my perspective. I'm going to change the pivot point on there because I seem to always forget to do this and end up with funky stuff going on. So I'm just going to snap this down so right on top. Go to orthographic front, and gonna scale it slightly. So we'll do this. So I'm just going to go around. I know this is going to be let's worry about that at the moment. Let's see what this looks like as we snap these edges to the cylinder. And obviously some of them are going to be pretty overstretched, but we can figure that out afterwards. Our main goal here is to make sure that our actual cylinder is round, and it's very easy to sort of mess up. So hopefully we should have enough edges here, and if we don't, we may have to do it again. Look at that, that's absolutely perfect. So now we've done that, and now all those edges are pretty much perfect. I'm actually going to fix this edge here, and how I'm going to do that, I'm just going to, because I'm probably sure that's fine, but I can actually go to my cinder shape, and I'm just going to keep scaling it up, adding subdivision until it sort of meets to check, and it does. So yeah, it's absolutely fine where it is. So I'm just going to hide that now. And obviously we've snapped loads of things into places that now we've got an equal amount of edges. We need to go around and fix the topology. So there's not a lot you need to fix in some places, but some places it's really bad. go around, making this look nice and making it look like it's flowing. And this is why I always add an extra sort of, when I'm having sharpened edges, have an extra sort of edge, just in case. So obviously I can't really, I don't want to pull that, I don't want to pull this too far out of shape. But I also don't want it like a crooked angle. Because it needs to be round. Just adjusting all the topology so we don't have to do too much here. You can see how we're making every sort of edge. We're making these curve around here and these curve up here. And if you have OCD, it's quite a satisfying thing to do. Cool, so we've pretty much done all these holes. Everything's cylindrical. Let's just go around and just double check everything's nice. And where we can sort of fix things. I think that should be fine. We've got some nice edge flow here. So I'm just going to go to my faces. And I can delete all those. We still have our cylinder. We started off in the middle. So let's just double check this before we do anything else. And we can do this all as a oneer, so don't worry about that. So I'm just going to unhide that poly cylinder. And I'm going to change my pivot point back to, because I think I centered it by accident. Didn't mean to do that. So I'm just going to delete all my history and freeze the transforms. Then I can just press Control D, go to my scale X, just minus it in the 1. I can actually hide the cylinder now. That should be. Wait a sec, let's double check, because I know this is, and we may not have actually. So I've selected my cylinder, hold V and snapped it so it's aligned to here. So I realised we may not have aligned that. And what we can do is, my bad, we'll just go around and double check these edges. It looks, yeah, we'll have to go around and fix these edges, so sorry about that. So let's just re-snap those back on. We don't have to change the topology, we've not moved it that much, but for the sake of keeping everything nice and symmetrical, because this is quite a clean, well, when we texture it, it's probably not going to be a clean object, but it's fairly round, and you may not notice it at this point, but if you know it's not perfectly symmetrical, it might hurt your soul just knowing that. It hurts my soul. I just want everything to be perfect. Well, as perfect as can be. So I am actually going to fix this topology here. Cool. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just going to change my pivot point again. I'm going to align it to this center, then align it to the bottom. Then that should be right in the center. So I'm just going to hide that Now if I control D and minus it in the X, we see this perfectly aligned in the middle. We've not got any funny things going on. So I'm going to select these two, mesh, combine. Select these vertices, edit mesh and merge. Because they're on top of each other, they should merge, but always press 3 to double check. It's fine. So now I'm just going to change my pivot point again because it's reset. I'm going to snap it down to the bottom. Press insert to turn it off. Then control D and minus in the Y. And now we've duplicated it across. And now we can merge these together. And we can select all the vertices in the middle. Edit mesh and merge. So now if we press 3, turn our shading, X-ray off, and our wireframe unshaded. Let's go to our perspective and have a look at this. Let's hide that. And you can see we've got this really nice shape now. And looking at the sort of the highlight on there, there's no imperfections or anything like that. So I guess our next thing to do is have a look at these holes. So I'm happy with all this. All these holes are just like straight down, apart from these ones in the middle that are beveled. Because these are I guess where the screws go in for the mounting. So if we just press 1. Let's go back to our default material so we can see it a bit clearer. So I'm just going to select all these. And I probably could have done that on there, but I prefer to do it this way. So I'm just going to control E. I'm going to extrude those in before finishing off and go to my perspective. And I'm just going to push them down a little bit. And we're pretty much done. So we've got all these inside bits that we could model as well. But I doubt we'll ever see them. So I'm just going to go to my orthographic. Again, select my camera and import, not a movie, I want to import an image. I'm going to go to the same place. I just want to have a look at some more reference. Let's see if I see anything. So I'm just going to open this one up and have a look. So this is a solid, sort of thick sort of shape. So you can see it's quite thick. So we need to figure out how we're going to do that sort of shape now. So I'm just going to push this up here for now. So we've got quite a bit of thickness, and that probably that's on everything. We've got quite a lot of edges here. So what we're going to do is figure out how we're going to get those nice sharp edges. So first of all, I'm going to select my edge loop around the edge. I'm going to deselect these ones in here. And if I can't get this in the symmetry, I'll probably just have to, if I can't get this how it is now, I'll probably have to delete some of it and redo the symmetry. So I'm just going to Control E and just scale that out roughly. Let me go to my perspective. Just going to look. I can see it's quite shallow, sort of bevel. Maybe it's slightly too much. Just go back to my orthographic and check my front again. So I'm going to match the top, because throughout everything I've always been matching everything up at the top. I feel that's pretty good. Maybe just a tiny bit more like that. Let's check our orthographic front again, and that should be fine. Cool, so now we've made this sort of edge. We can probably relax some of this as well, because now no, actually we can't, because we need to keep that round. Ignore that. So I'm gonna unhide that cylinder again. I'm gonna bring back my. Actually, no, I don't need that cylinder. All I need to do is select this edge and snap it so it's aligned there. Do the same on this one. Cool, so I don't think we need this anymore, more than we need. I think we need this more. So obviously it looks like there's a little lip there as well, but I don't think we have to worry a huge amount of going into that. So what I'm going to do, because we've made everything an edge loop, when we select everything it's going to do that. So select that edge loop. Like I said, we could just delete the symmetry and just do this once, but this is not a complex thing to do at the moment. So I'm just going to Control E to extrude. Hold V and snap that to there. Now I need to sort of decide how I'm going to sort of close this off, because we need to make sure that this is sharp. I'm not too keen on having a shape like this, but it might be okay. So I'm just going to do that to those edges. So if it all goes wrong, we can just delete it, read it. So now we've closed those edges. We now want to extrude it again. And we can select the edge loop, because we made everything nice in an edge loop. That's now selected everything we want. If we just Control E, and now we can extrude that out. We have to take a best guess on how thick that is to what looks good, so we can sort of see it's quite a lot thicker than our bevel. I feel it's something like this. Maybe a tad too much. Cool. So I'm quite happy with that shape. So you can see we've sort of this nice, it's not a super complex shape. It's got lots of holes in it, but yeah, it's an interesting shape to do. So now all we're going to do is just select all these inside edges. So we probably could have just done this in this top quarter like we did for the rest. But where's the fun in that? So I'm just going to Control E to extrude. And what I'm going to do is just press R to scale it so they're all flat. Press W. Hold V to snap it to the edge so they're all flat on top of each other. And now we've got this nice sort of motor shape. So now our final step would be to sort of close this off. And that's really simple. All we need to do is duplicate this, slide it out. I'm going to select my faces, delete all the edges. If I just go to my orthographic top-down view, sorry, I keep drifting away from my mic, and I can just select all these, press delete. Now select all these faces, press R, scale it. Then I'll go back to my perspective. I now need to flip the display. So if I select it, mesh display in reverse, hold V. Ooh, why are you not snapping? Let's freeze transforms, delete history, and center it. Hold V and hold V again and snap it, and now you can see that we've got, so we don't need to model that again. We've already modeled everything and it's just the same as the front. So now we can select this, go to edit mesh, mesh combine. And notice that we have an extra edge. So if we select that edge, because we've got the bevel there that we didn't, we obviously moved down, but so if we press Control and delete, let's remove that. Select that one, hold Control and delete, let's remove that. And all we have to do now is select the vertices. I can just select them all because I know they're on top of each other. I can just go edit mesh and merge. So hopefully that should have just been enough. So if you just press 3, have a look around your model. Let's turn our Fong on. And it all looks nice and closed. All we need to do now is tighten up these edges. So let's start with the easiest ones first. It's going to be these inside edges. Ooh. I'm just going to select all these edges. Let's just double check what that's like. That middle one is not the same. Slightly more beveled than the rest. But these ones are quite tight. So I'm just going to go around and select them all. And I only do the sharpening of the edges when I'm 100% happy with the sort of model. So I don't want to do this then realise, oh, there's something wrong. And then have to undo everything and it turns into a nightmare. So let's just double check. When you're doing a mass bevel, I guess, as I'd say, check that you have everything that you want to bevel. You don't want to miss an edge and forget about it before your history runs out, because then that's just annoying as well, because then you have to fix it. So if we bevel that, and these are extremely tight, so let's just press 3 and see what that looks like. So we've got some really nice tight edges. See, I knew I'd miss. I seem to. Let's press 1. Oh, I just missed this outer edge here. It's getting annoying. I keep forgetting some things. Maybe I'm just a little bit tired, sorry. But cool, that looks about right. So let's press 3. And those look really nice. And obviously we've got some funky stuff here where it's not been sharpened yet. So we actually probably want to go to our orthographic front. And I can just move this a little bit away, just so it's not close to that edge. We're going to tighten this up anyway, but I can see, because that's getting quite close, I don't want that to be pinching. So if I leave it enough space, we shouldn't get any sort of geometry pinching. Cool. So if we look at this middle bit, we can see it's beveled. It's not as tight as all the other bits, so select these edges, bevel that. It's not a round bevel, it's a sharp bevel, so what I'll do, I'll guesstimate the bevel there. That's on both sides. Then I can actually select this bevel again. Then bevel the bevel. So it's super tight. So now if I press 3, we've got a nice sharp edge there. Now we just need to go around and do our final beveling on all these edges. So just go around and make sure you select all these sort of edges. And this is where we'll find out whether if that was a good choice to bevel, do this like that. Okay, so we have added, so we've got that edge loop that goes round. Thing is, if I bevel this and go to here, it's going to stop here, so I could fence it, but let's see what a bevel looks like. So this could cause a crease, but hopefully if this is flat, we shouldn't ever see it. So if we press 3 now, and it looks pretty perfect. We've got no creases or any weird stuff going on. And it looks pretty good. Even our back. So it's looking all pretty decent. I think that goes down like that. I don't know whether there's any point doing that. We'd have to undo our bevel, that's for sure. Let's not worry about that. That seems a bit excessive for something that we probably would never actually see. But cool. So for this sort of the motor part, we're pretty much done. So I won't try and do the whole motor in one section because some of the tutorials are getting quite long, so I'll try and break it down even more. So let's just tidy everything up. Let's delete freeze transforms, delete the history. I'll just call this motor part 01. Yeah, we're pretty much done. So in the next tutorial, we'll continue sort of making the rest of it. We'll do the middle part. So the middle part probably won't take very long. Actually, no, we've got these We've got this shape, so we're going to work out in the next one, because we can't just, we've got this sort of beveled edge here, so we'll work out that as well. We'll do the whole making holes and round thing shapes. It's cool. So if you've enjoyed this tutorial, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.